Ethan had always been the kind of employee every boss wanted. He came early, stayed late, and never complained. While others rushed out the door at 5 o'clock sharp, Ethan often stayed behind, finishing reports or helping co-workers who were falling behind. People admired his dedication, though some secretly mocked him for working too hard. But Ethan didn't care. He believed hard work always paid off, and he trusted that loyalty would be noticed by the people who mattered. 4 years, he had worked under Mr. Collins, the company's confident and respected boss. To most employees, Mr. Collins was a figure of authority, almost untouchable. He was sharp in meetings, quick with numbers, and always dressed in a perfectly pressed suit. Ethan respected him deeply. He even looked at him as a role model. If anyone had asked Ethan who inspired him at work, he would have answered without hesitation, Mr. Collins. That was why the moment felt like a nightmare when it happened. It was a regular Tuesday morning when Ethan was called into the large meeting room. At first, he didn't think much of it. Meetings were common, and he often presented updates about data and reports. But as soon as he walked in, his stomach tightened. Something felt different. The entire office was already gathered there. People filled the chairs, others stood at the back, and all eyes turned toward him as he entered. The air was thick, heavy with tension. Ethan didn't know why, but his palms grew sweaty. At the front of the room, Mr. Collins stood with a stern expression. Beside him was Ryan, Ethan's closest friend in the company. Also, he thought. Ryan avoided Ethan's eyes, pretending to check his phone. Ethan frowned but said nothing. Ethan, Mr. Collins's voice rang through the silent room. Please stand here. Ethan slowly stepped forward, confused. He glanced around, noticing whispers passing between colleagues. Some looked concerned, but others looked amused, as if waiting for some kind of show. Ethan's heartbeat pounded in his ears. Mr. Collins clicked a button, and the projector lit up the screen. What Ethan saw made his legs go weak. There were emails, confidential company data, apparently sent from his account to an unknown competitor's address. Numbers, strategies, private documents, all under his name. Ethan's mouth fell open. What is this? Mr. Collins's voice was cold. This is what I want you to explain. These emails were traced back to your account. Confidential information, leaked to a competitor. Do you understand how serious this is? Gasps filled the room. Someone muttered, I knew it. Another whispered, unbelievable. Ethan's chest burned with panic. That's not me, he blurted out. His voice cracked, and his hands trembled as he pointed to the screen. I never sent those emails. I would never, Mr. Collins, you know me. I've been loyal to this company for years. Why would I ever do something like this? But instead of listening, Mr. Collins's expression hardened. The evidence is here. Your account. Your access. Your responsibility. Ethan shook his head violently. No. There has to be a mistake. Maybe it was hacked. Maybe someone. Enough. Mr. Collins's voice thundered, making Ethan flinch. Do not insult this company with excuses. You were trusted, and you betrayed that trust. Laughter rippled softly from the back of the room. Ethan turned and caught sight of 2 colleagues smirking. Another one whispered something and chuckled. It felt like knives stabbing into his chest. He wanted to shout, to beg them to believe him, but his throat tightened. Please? Ethan tried again, his voice breaking. You know me. You know I would never. Mr. Collins cut him off. Security. 2 guards entered. Ethan's heart dropped. He wasn't even given the chance to defend himself. He wasn't asked privately. No investigation. Just public humiliation. His entire reputation was being torn apart in front of everyone. From this moment, Mr. Collins said coldly, you are terminated from your position. You have 30 minutes to clear your desk. Any attempt to enter this building after today will be considered trespassing. A heavy silence filled the room. Ethan felt dizzy, like the ground beneath him had vanished. Terminated? Just like that? No chance to prove his innocence? His eyes darted around the room, searching for someone, anyone, who would stand up for him. But no one moved. Some stared at the floor, ashamed to meet his eyes. Others simply watched with thin smiles, secretly enjoying the drama. And then Ethan saw Ryan. His friend. The one he had eaten lunch with every day. The one he trusted. Ryan's lips curved into a smirk. Not a nervous smirk, not an awkward one. No, it was the kind of smirk that said, "I knew this would happen. I wanted this to happen." Ethan's stomach twisted. Betrayal flooded his chest like fire. He realized, in that moment, that Ryan wasn't his friend at all. Ryan had something to do with this. But Ethan couldn't prove it. Not yet. "Escort him out," Mr. Collins ordered. The guards moved closer. Ethan's face burned with shame. He wanted to fight back, to shout that he was innocent. But the weight of humiliation pressed him down. The whispers grew louder as he was led through the office. "He really did it. I didn't expect that from him. Guess you never know people." Each word felt like a dagger. Ethan walked with his head down, gripping the small box of his belongings. The same office he had given years of his life to now turned its back on him. His loyalty, his dedication, it all meant nothing. At his desk, he gathered the few things that mattered. A framed photo of his mother, a notebook filled with ideas, and a small pen Olivia, a kind coworker, had once gifted him. His hands shook as he placed them into the box. He tried to ignore the stares burning into his back. He tried not to listen to the muffled laughter. When he finally reached the elevator, he paused. His chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. He turned his head one last time. And there it was, Ryan, standing at the corner, arms crossed, smirk wide and confident. Their eyes met. Ryan didn't look away. Instead, he tilted his head slightly, as if mocking Ethan, as if saying, "Game over." Ethan's heart pounded with rage. He clenched his fists until his knuckles turned white. For a moment, he wanted to march back and scream the truth, to tear down every false word. But he knew it wouldn't matter. No one would believe him. The evidence was against him, and the man behind the trap was standing right there, enjoying every second of his downfall. The elevator doors closed, sealing Ethan's exit. Inside, alone with his reflection, he whispered, "This isn't the end. I didn't do this. And one day, they'll all know the truth." Outside, the city buzzed with life, but Ethan felt like a ghost walking through it. Cars honked, people rushed past, and the world carried on as if nothing had happened. But inside him, something had changed forever. His trust was broken, his career destroyed, and his so-called friend had revealed his true face. Ethan walked slowly, the box in his arms heavier than it should have been. Every step echoed with the laughter and whispers that had followed him out of the office. He had lost everything, but deep in his chest, beneath the pain, a small fire began to burn. It was anger. It was determination. And it whispered a promise. This isn't over. The first few days after Ethan's public humiliation were the hardest of his life. He had always been the kind of man who believed that if you worked hard, life would reward you. But now, that belief lay in pieces. Every morning he woke up, staring at the ceiling, remembering the whispers, the smirks, the laughter in that meeting room. His chest tightened each time Ryan's smirk replayed in his mind. He tried to distract himself. He sent out resumes, applied to job postings, and even reached out to old contacts. But the moment he mentioned his last company, the silence on the other end of the line told him everything. The news had spread. His name was tainted. No one wanted to hire a man accused of leaking confidential data. One afternoon, Ethan sat in his small apartment, staring at his laptop screen filled with rejection emails. The sunlight streamed through the blinds, but he felt as though he was living in constant darkness. His mother called, her voice filled with concern. "Ethan, are you eating? You don't sound well." "I'm fine, Mom," he lied, though his stomach was empty. "Just, things are difficult right now." "You'll get through this," she said gently. "You're strong. Don't give up." Her words gave him a flicker of strength, but as soon as the call ended, the silence swallowed him again. That evening, unable to sleep, Ethan went for a walk through the city. The streets glowed with neon lights, restaurants full of laughter and chatter. People passed by in suits, carrying briefcases, living the life he had lost. He wandered aimlessly until he found himself standing outside his old office building. The tall glass structure loomed over him like a monster. His chest burned. He could almost hear the echoes of that meeting room, Mr. Collins's voice accusing him, Ryan's smirk mocking him. His fists clenched. For a moment, he considered walking in, shouting the truth, demanding justice. But he knew it was useless. Without proof, he was just another disgraced employee. Still, he whispered into the night, "I didn't do it. And one day, you'll regret this." The next morning, Ethan sat at his kitchen table with a notebook. He began to write, not resumes, not pleas for jobs, but his memories. Every suspicious thing he had noticed in the company before that day. Times when Mr. Collins had acted strangely, when documents had gone missing, when Ryan had been too close to information that wasn't his. The more Ethan wrote, the more patterns began to form. It wasn't just random. Someone had planned this. Someone had framed him carefully, making sure the evidence pointed only to him. And who benefited from this? Ethan thought of Ryan, the smirk, the satisfaction in his eyes. His gut told him Ryan had played a part. But why? For a promotion? For power? Or was Ryan working with Mr. Collins? Ethan's pen dug into the paper, almost tearing it. His anger sharpened into determination. If no one would give him a chance, he would give himself one. He would find the truth. He would expose the lies. Days turned into weeks. Ethan spent hours at the public library, researching cybersecurity, email spoofing, and account hacking. He read case studies of corporate fraud, learning how easy it was for skilled people to plant false evidence. The more he read, the clearer it became. Someone had set him up. One evening, as he dug through old files he had saved on a flash drive, he noticed something strange. A financial report he had worked on months ago had been altered. Not by him, but by someone else who had accessed it after hours. The system logs, something most people ignored, showed Ryan's ID number. Ethan's heart pounded. It wasn't solid proof yet, but it was a thread. A clue. He leaned back in his chair, whispering, "Ryan, you snake." But Ryan wasn't the only enemy. Ethan remembered the way Mr. Collins had staged the meeting, making his humiliation public. That wasn't an accident. Mr. Collins wanted everyone to see Ethan as guilty, so no one would question it later. Which meant Mr. Collins was hiding something bigger. Ethan's notebook filled with timelines, names, and theories. Slowly, he began to see the outline of the truth. Mr. Collins had been stealing from the company, and Ryan had helped cover it up by framing Ethan. Together, they had turned him into the perfect scapegoat. One night, as Ethan pieced everything together, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Olivia, a kind coworker who had always been supportive. "Ethan, I shouldn't be messaging you, but I think you need to know this. Ryan just got promoted to your old position. And Mr. Collins, he's praising him like crazy. Something feels wrong." Ethan stared at the message, his pulse racing. It confirmed everything. Ryan had betrayed him for career gain, and Collins had rewarded him. The anger boiling inside Ethan nearly spilled over. But then, instead of rage, something else sparked in him. An idea. A dangerous, thrilling idea. If they thought they had destroyed him, they were wrong. They had only awakened the part of him that refused to stay down. He whispered to himself, "If Ryan and Collins want to play games, I'll give them one they'll never forget." From that night on, Ethan wasn't just a man searching for answers. He was a man preparing for revenge. He began to train himself. Not physically, but mentally. He learned more about cybersecurity, studying how to trace fake emails, how to track hidden transactions. He read about whistleblowers and how they gathered undeniable evidence before exposing corruption. Every day he grew sharper, more focused. The humiliation he had felt in that meeting room still haunted him, but now it fueled him. Each memory of laughter, each image of Ryan's smirk, became fuel for the fire inside him. Weeks later, Ethan managed to sneak into an online server connected to the company's system. It wasn't easy, he had to use everything he'd learned, but finally, he gained access. His hands shook as he clicked through files. And then, he saw them. Hidden folders, filled with financial documents. Transfers to unknown accounts. Numbers that didn't add up. And attached to some of those files? Ryan's ID again. Ethan leaned back, his chest heaving. It was there. Proof that something bigger was happening. Proof that he had been framed. But he couldn't reveal it yet. He needed more. He needed the kind of evidence that would not only clear his name but destroy both Ryan and Mr. Collins in one strike. He shut down his laptop and stared out the window into the night. His reflection looked different now. Not the broken man who had walked out of the office in shame, but a man with a plan. Ethan's hands shook as he read the words. Proof. Undeniable proof. He leaned back, his chest heaving with a mixture of rage and triumph. They destroyed me with lies, he whispered. But now, I'll destroy them with the truth. Olivia looked at him nervously. What will you do with this? Ethan's eyes narrowed. This is just the beginning. I'll leak it. Not to Collins, not to the company, but to the world. When I'm done, they won't just lose their jobs. They'll lose everything. Their careers, their reputations, maybe even their freedom. That night, Ethan sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker. For the first time in months, he felt powerful again. The man who had walked out of the office humiliated and broken was gone. In his place was someone new, someone sharper, stronger, and ready to strike. He whispered into the night, "You laughed when I was fired. Soon, you'll be begging for my help." Ethan worked day and night on his secret project. It became his mission, his purpose, and his quiet revenge. While everyone thought he was gone, broken, and forgotten, Ethan was building something stronger than anyone could imagine. He started small. In his little apartment, he set up a workstation. With a used laptop, old notebooks, and a whiteboard covered with ideas, he mapped out everything he had learned from working at Mr. Collins's company. He knew their weak points. He knew what clients hated. He knew the flaws in their system that no one else dared to fix. Slowly, Ethan turned all that knowledge into his own plan. But he also knew one thing: he couldn't do this alone. That's when he reached out to a few colleagues he trusted, the ones who had quietly supported him after he was fired. At first, they were scared. Working against Mr. Collins seemed risky. But when Ethan explained the vision, when he showed them how his system could solve real problems, they joined him one by one. Together, they started shaping the project into a real product. Ethan worked like a man possessed. He didn't think about the laughter anymore. He didn't think about the humiliation. He only thought about the day when the same people who mocked him would realize they had underestimated the wrong man. Weeks turned into months. Ethan's small team grew stronger. They tested ideas late at night, argued about designs, and laughed when things finally worked. Ethan, who once left the office in tears, was now a leader. He inspired them with his focus, his patience, and his quiet fire. Meanwhile, back at Collins Enterprises, things weren't going so well. Mr. Collins grew arrogant after firing Ethan. He believed no one could replace him, but the new hires couldn't manage the work Ethan once handled with ease. Projects fell behind. Clients started complaining. But Mr. Collins refused to admit he had made a mistake. Instead, he blamed others and pushed harder, making the office environment toxic. Ryan, the so-called friend who had smirked at Ethan's downfall, thrived at first. He took Ethan's old position and bragged about his success. But as projects kept failing, even Ryan struggled to keep up. He stayed late at the office, stressed and tired, pretending to be in control but secretly panicking inside. One night, as Ethan worked on his laptop, a notification popped up. His project had caught the attention of a major investor. The investor wanted to meet. Ethan couldn't believe it. This was his chance. He prepared every detail, rehearsed every line, and walked into that meeting with quiet confidence. The investor listened carefully as Ethan explained the system. He showed how it could solve problems faster, cheaper, and smarter than the outdated methods companies like Collins Enterprises were still using. The investor nodded, asked tough questions, and finally leaned back in his chair. "You've got something powerful here," the man said. "I'm in." Ethan's heart raced. That moment was the turning point. With investment secured, he and his small team launched officially. They named the company Phoenix Solutions, because like the bird that rises from ashes, Ethan was rising from his humiliation. The launch was small, but the impact was big. Companies started noticing. Clients who once worked with Collins Enterprises heard about Ethan's project. They tested it, liked it, and signed contracts. Slowly, Collins's clients began to leave, quietly at first, but then in larger numbers. Mr. Collins didn't realize what was happening until it was too late. Reports showed profits dropping. Longtime clients refused to renew contracts. Confused, he demanded answers. That's when someone finally mentioned the name that sent a chill down his spine: Ethan. The man he humiliated in front of everyone. The man he fired. The man he thought was finished. Collins's pride wouldn't let him accept the truth. He told himself it was just a small competitor, nothing serious. But deep down, fear gnawed at him. He remembered Ethan's face as he walked out that day, the quiet anger in his eyes. Now he understood what that look meant. As Phoenix Solutions grew, Ethan stayed humble. He didn't brag. He didn't rush to show off. He let the success speak for itself. Every new contract was a victory. Every happy client was proof that he had been right all along. But Ethan wasn't done. He knew revenge was best served not with loud words, but with undeniable success. And soon, he would have the chance to face Mr. Collins again, not as a victim, but as the man Collins would have no choice but to beg for help. And when that moment came, Ethan promised himself he would remember every laugh, every whisper, and every smirk that once broke him. The tables were finally turning. The storm hit Collins Enterprises harder than anyone expected. One by one, the company's oldest and most loyal clients began pulling away. At first, it was a trickle, one client choosing to pause their contract, another quietly exploring other options. Mr. Collins brushed it off with his usual arrogance, telling the board that clients were simply testing the market. But within weeks, it became a flood. The shocking part was that many of these clients weren't just leaving. They were leaving for Ethan's company. Phoenix Solutions was gaining a reputation for speed, honesty, and results. The system Ethan had built was faster, cheaper, and far more transparent than Collins Enterprises could ever offer. Inside the office, tension grew thick. Meetings turned into shouting matches. Employees walked on eggshells, terrified of being the next target of Collins's wrath. Even Ryan, who once gloated about Ethan's firing, felt the weight of failure pressing down on him. Late nights at the office no longer gave him bragging rights. They gave him headaches and sleepless nights. His confidence cracked as more projects collapsed. Meanwhile, Ethan's company thrived. His small office buzzed with energy. His team believed in the mission, and their passion showed in every client presentation. Ethan remained calm and steady, guiding them with quiet strength. He didn't talk about revenge to his team, but deep inside, every success tasted sweet. It was his answer to the humiliation he once endured. One morning, Mr. Collins stormed into his office with red eyes and a trembling fist full of reports. "Who is behind this Phoenix Solutions?" he demanded. "Who's stealing our clients?" His assistant hesitated, shifting uncomfortably before whispering, "It's Ethan, sir. Ethan Parker." The name hit Collins like a slap. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. The man he had accused of betrayal, the man he humiliated and fired in front of everyone, was now the reason his empire was collapsing. Rage filled him, but so did fear. He had underestimated Ethan, and now Ethan was proving to be stronger than he ever imagined. As days passed, Collins Enterprises sank deeper into chaos. Deadlines were missed. The board grew restless. Rumors spread across the office that bankruptcy might be coming if something didn't change. Employees whispered in corners, some secretly applying to work at Phoenix Solutions. Ryan, too, started to feel abandoned. The boss who once favored him now yelled at him daily. The colleagues who once laughed at Ethan now avoided eye contact, realizing how wrong they had been. Ryan's smirk was gone, replaced by dark circles under his eyes and guilt he could no longer bury. Then came the breaking point. A major client, one who had been with Collins Enterprises for more than 15 years, announced they were moving to Phoenix Solutions. This wasn't just a loss. It was a death sentence. Without that client's money, Collins Enterprises wouldn't survive the next quarter. Desperate, Mr. Collins did something no one expected. He called Ethan. When Ethan saw the name flashing on his phone, he paused. For a moment, memories rushed back, the humiliation, the laughter, the sting of betrayal. He almost ignored the call. But then, a calm smile spread across his face. He answered. Ethan, Collins began, his voice strained and uneasy. We need to talk. Ethan didn't rush to respond. He let the silence hang in the air, forcing Collins to feel the weight of his desperation. Finally, Ethan said in a calm voice, Funny. I don't remember you wanting to talk the day you ruined my career. Collins tried to laugh, but it came out hollow. Let's not dwell on the past. Business is business. And right now, you and I, we could help each other. Ethan leaned back in his chair, the satisfaction washing over him. The same man who once humiliated him in front of everyone was now asking for help. The tables had truly turned. That night, Ethan sat with his team and told them about the call. Some were shocked. Others laughed. One teammate asked, So, what are you going to do? Work with him? Ethan shook his head. Not yet, he said. He has to feel what I felt. Every ounce of it. This is not just about business. This is about justice. But deep inside, Ethan knew that the real revenge wasn't in rejecting Collins. It was in making him admit the truth, in front of everyone, the same way Ethan once had to suffer. The stage was being set. The humiliation Ethan had endured in the past was about to come full circle. Soon, the entire company, the same colleagues who laughed at him, would watch their proud boss bow his head and beg for mercy. Ethan had waited patiently for this moment. And now, it was finally here. The news spread fast. Collins Enterprises was collapsing, and Phoenix Solutions was rising higher every day. What once looked like a tiny startup had now become a giant, stealing clients left and right. But the real shock came when word leaked inside the office. Mr. Collins was reaching out to Ethan for help. The same Ethan who had been dragged out of the building in shame. The same Ethan who had been laughed at, mocked, and branded a traitor. Employees couldn't believe it. The whispers that filled the office were no longer about Ethan being guilty, but about Collins being desperate. Mr. Collins finally arranged a meeting with Ethan. The board pressured him into it. Phoenix Solutions was the only way to save them now. He sent an official invite, and to everyone's surprise, Ethan agreed. On the day of the meeting, tension filled the air. Ethan arrived at the Collins Enterprises building, the same place he once left with a box of his belongings. This time, however, he wasn't walking in as a powerless employee. He walked in as the CEO of a company that had beaten his old boss at his own game. Employees watched in silence as Ethan entered the conference room. Some of them remembered how they had laughed that day when he was fired. Now, not one of them dared to smile. They lowered their heads, ashamed. Inside the room, Mr. Collins sat with the board members. His usual arrogant grin was gone. He looked older, tired, and far less powerful than Ethan remembered. The man who once humiliated Ethan now looked like a beggar at his own table. Ethan, Collins began, forcing a smile. I'm glad you came. Ethan didn't sit immediately. He walked slowly around the room, letting his presence sink in. Finally, he sat across from Collins, his calm eyes locked on the man who had once destroyed his career. You wanted to talk, Ethan said simply. Collins cleared his throat. Yes. As you know, the market has been challenging. Some of our clients have moved over to your company. You've built something impressive. Really impressive. And I believe, if we work together, we could. Ethan raised his hand, cutting him off. You believe? His voice was calm but sharp. "The day you fired me, in front of everyone, did you believe me when I said I was innocent?" Collins shifted uncomfortably. The board members stared at the table. No one dared to speak. "You accused me of betrayal. You called me a thief. You destroyed my reputation." Ethan leaned forward. "Tell me, Mr. Collins, do you believe now that you were wrong?" Silence filled the room. Collins's face turned pale. He opened his mouth but no words came out. The man who once shouted insults at Ethan was now speechless. Ethan didn't rush him. He wanted Collins to feel the weight of the moment. The same crushing humiliation Ethan had endured that day. Finally, Collins's voice cracked. "Yes, I was wrong." The board gasped softly. Collins swallowed his pride further. "I was wrong about you, Ethan. You weren't guilty. I fired you unjustly. I humiliated you unfairly. And for that, I apologize." The words were bitter, forced out like poison. But they were real. Ethan had done what no one thought possible. He had made the proud Mr. Collins publicly admit his mistake. Ethan leaned back, his calm smile returning. "Good. That's all I needed to hear." Collins blinked. "Wait, you're not going to help us?" Ethan shook his head slowly. "Why would I? Phoenix Solutions doesn't need you. We're thriving without you. This meeting wasn't for business. It was for justice." He stood up, his voice steady. "And justice is done." The board sat frozen, stunned at the quiet power Ethan carried. He walked out of the room without another word, leaving Collins humiliated in front of his own people. The exact mirror of the day Ethan had been humiliated. As Ethan stepped outside the building, employees watched with wide eyes. Some of them whispered apologies, others simply bowed their heads. But Ethan didn't stop to listen. He didn't need their pity. He had already won. Back at Phoenix Solutions, his team greeted him like a hero. Contracts kept pouring in. Clients praised their work. The company grew bigger every month. Ethan had gone from being the man everyone laughed at to the man everyone admired. And as for Collins Enterprises, within 6 months, the company declared bankruptcy. Employees scattered to new jobs, and some even applied to Phoenix Solutions, hoping to work under the man they once mocked. Ethan hired a few, not out of need, but out of mercy. Ryan, the so-called friend who smirked during Ethan's humiliation, ended up jobless and bitter. He sent Ethan a message once, begging for a chance. Ethan read it, smiled faintly, and deleted it without reply. Some betrayals did not deserve forgiveness. Ethan never bragged about his revenge. He didn't need to. His success spoke louder than words. He had lived through the darkest humiliation, and he had risen, not with anger, but with patience, hard work, and undeniable victory. They laughed when he was fired. They laughed when he walked out with his box. But in the end, those same people bowed their heads as he walked back in, not as a victim, but as the man who made them beg for his help. The sweet revenge was complete. Subscribe for more.